Hi there, welcome back. I hope that you're doing okay. Very excited to have you back with me and really excited to hear from everyone who said they have started growing indoors recently and have been inspired by the videos I've been doing. That makes me really happy. My own plants are making me really happy. We're getting some good progress now, but we're at the stage where we need to know to prune or not to prune and what difference will it make. That's what I'm going to be covering in this video, along with a few other general troubleshooting tips if you're growing tomatoes or vegetables indoors, so stick around. You also might be wondering why I've got Satsuma. I will tell you at the end. So we're about 8 weeks into growing our tomatoes. We planted them at the beginning of lockdown from a seed from a shop bought tomato, and they've done really well actually. We're really pleased. They're on this south facing window here, so they've had a really good dose of sun. It's not been sunny all the time, but they've had good sun when it's come out, so it's been warm. They've obviously liked those conditions. Because we're growing them indoors, and I think this is the great advantage of growing them indoors, we've kept a really close eye on them. So we've kept them wet. You don't want them to be too wet because that can be detrimental, but if you stick your finger into the soil, you want to make sure that it's moist most of the time. So because they're in our kitchen, we're in here all the time, we've been able to keep them exactly where they should be really in terms of moisture levels. We've been able to open the windows and let some air in on the right days and keep them just generally aerated because they like that as well. So we're really happy with our progress. I'd love to know how you're getting on. I've spoken to Frances, my mother-in-law, who lives a bit further up north. We're down near to London. She's up more towards Bedford. Hers aren't growing as fast as ours, so I thought that was really interesting to have that comparison, ones that have been planted at the same time. So there are so many variables when you're growing tomatoes, and that's what makes it really fun, and it's really nice to see and measure your own experiences. So about a week ago, I phoned Frances, my mother-in-law, and obviously with video calling, almost everyone can do video calling now. It's really nice because we've been doing little tours of the things that we're growing. She's been showing us her amazing greenhouse, but it's also been great for troubleshooting. And at that time, I had my first signs of trouble with these tomatoes. They were looking pretty healthy at first glance. She was impressed at the size of them. They were obviously heading in the right direction, up and outwards, but they did have some little black flies. So I asked her advice and she said to just open the window. Hopefully they would disappear. But I also had a little look on YouTube, as you do, to see if there was any other advice about ways of getting rid of them. Now, we didn't want to start going down the route of using any kind of chemicals or pesticides, but I thought I was happy to try any kind of natural methods. And I came across one video that suggested using Satsuma peel because the scent of it basically puts off the flies and they disappear. And that's exactly what I did. And as soon as I dropped the Satsuma peel in, I saw the flies start to move away. Now, I don't know how much proof there is or how much scientific research there is about this particular piece of advice, but I tried it and it's worked for us. And since then, I've only seen the odd little fly. They haven't been covered in them in the way they were, and I'm really pleased about that because I really thought we might start, being in trouble, but we weren't. So I would definitely recommend trying that if you've got a Satsuma to hand and you're suffering the same problem. I have got one more trick up my sleeve when it comes to deterring flies and insects, so I will share that with you at the end. But let's have a look now at where we are in terms of pruning, because this is the big question. I covered it in my last video. What do you do? There's every article I read and every video I watch has a different opinion about pruning. And as I said last time, there are so many variables. So what's right for you might not be right for another person, or it might not be right for that type of tomato. And I think if you're growing tomatoes indoors in the UK, you're probably in a unique situation. You've got a certain set of circumstances. As my mother-in-law's experience showed, even around the country, people's experiences are going to vary because of the weather and the temperature. But the thing is, if you're able to keep an eye on your tomatoes, they're quite close to hand, they're indoors on the windowsill like these are, then there's some issues that you don't have to worry about as much as you would if you were outside. Now, one of the reasons that people prune when they're outside is because it avoids the fungi and the mould spreading throughout the tomatoes. So allowing the air to circulate a bit more around the tomatoes by having fewer leaves can help keep them healthier overall. But that's thinking about tomatoes that are out in the garden that you may not be able to look at and monitor every day and change the conditions every day. If they're inside, you're much more likely to have a kind of closer relationship with your tomatoes. So if you see any signs of the mould on the leaves, you can address that. You can take out the particular leaves that need to be removed, and you can watch it a lot more closely. So you don't necessarily need to follow the same kind of blanket policy. But another reason that people remove the leaves is because they say it gives you more and tastier tomatoes. Now, others actually say it's to the contrary, because apparently the leaves actually help to photosynthesize and therefore give the tomatoes their flavour. So I think it seems like people are very divided about this issue, and perhaps it changes between species. But we said last time that we were going to try, because we've got 3 plants, we're trying with 1 plant, removing all of these extra leaves that you can see, shoots that you can see here that come between the stem and the branches. One of them we're going to leave all of them on, and one of them we're just going to remove a few of them. And what people tend to do if they've got tomatoes outside is they remove the bottom ones, because when you water them, this stops things, anything that's in the soil from spraying up and then contaminating the leaves. Because if they can get hold of those bottom leaves, then they start to that can start to spread up through the plant. So that's something to watch out for. And that's another reason when people are growing tomatoes outdoors, around the 1st of June, they tend to mulch them. So they put a layer down around the tomatoes that will stop too much splashback coming up as they get watered, because that stops the spread of disease. So that's a good idea if you're outdoors. Once again, I don't think you really need to worry about that too much with your garden, with your indoor tomatoes. I did mention this last time, but it's worth mentioning again. When you're watering them, water them at the bottom. So don't pour water all over the tops, because that's also when you can end up with wet, mouldy leaves, and it's a good environment for that mould to start growing and diseases to start spreading. So always just lift your bottom leaves and try and water them underneath. Ideally, water them in the morning. You don't really want them to be watered at night. That said, if they're looking a bit droopy by the end of the day, if you've had a particularly hot day, don't hold back from giving them a bit more water. You know, you'll start to see what they want and how they thrive and pick up. But yeah, don't deny them the water, but aim to do your watering in the morning. So this is what we're talking about, is these little growths here. They're what we're talking about removing or not removing. We've decided in this particular plant we are going to remove them. So you can do that many different ways. You could use some scissors. I've got reasonably long nails, so I can go in and just break them off with my nails. And you don't want them to let them get too long, so do that quite quickly. You can probably see as well, because this is a close-up, these little hairs along the plants, and these are called trichomes, and that's actually what gives the plant its scent, and supposedly it's the plant's own natural deterrent to deter bugs. So apparently they don't like the scent of them, and that puts them off. So to some extent it can do its own job at putting off pests, but it doesn't seem to manage to deter all of them. So we can just remove this gently now, and that won't grow anymore. So that's our big daddy in the middle, and that is actually Stephen, the kid's daddy, my partner's plant. But we've got Magnus and Logan's plants as well, and on Logan's plant here we're not going to remove those little growths, and on Magnus's we're going to remove some of them. Interestingly though, Logan's is the smallest plant, and this has actually got the first truss. It's the most advanced truss that we've got, and the trusses are the little growths with the flowers on that then turn into the tomatoes. So as soon as your trusses start to come through, you've got to start thinking about being ready to feed. You don't want to feed them straight away according to the instructions and what everyone says. You want to wait until those trusses turn from the little yellow flowers that they are at the moment into little green tomatoes. If you feed them too early, apparently you just get too much growth, too many leaves, and you don't actually get the tomatoes. So it's quite an exact science. And once they do turn into that, once you do get those little green tomatoes, then you need to be feeding them a couple of times a week. And I think that's really, really important. It's make or break with your tomatoes, really, from everything that I understand. So have it ready, have some in stock. This has been in our shed a very long time. It's been a few years since we tried growing tomatoes, so not sure actually. I'd have to have a look whether or not this has got a best before date on it. So I may get some more ready anyway. Looks like we've got a little bit longer, probably another week before those turn into green tomatoes. We'll see. But yeah, be prepared, because you don't want to miss that opportunity and then miss creating that abundance of fruit that you're looking for. So that's where we're at. I will keep you posted, of course. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram for more regular updates. I did promise you that I'd tell you one more thing about how we're managing to keep the pests away. It's just over here. I'm going to grab it. Ooh. So this is a little lockdown purchase, which is a Venus flytrap. We bought it for the kids because it's pretty magical to watch this catch flies. Really quite amazing. There's actually one in one of the traps now, but there's all sorts you can watch time lapse on them. They're really amazing, but they do literally catch flies. So when flies come nearby, they close and then they digest them and eventually open again, or they grow new ones. So some of them have gone black, as you'll see, and that does happen. They just regenerate the whole time. But some of them are open, nice and wide, ready to catch their dinner. So hopefully that's keeping our tomatoes a bit safe as well. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so that you receive a new notification when I've got a new video. And I would love to hear how you're getting on with your own growth and tomatoes. And if you're doing it for the first time, you're growing vegetables indoors for the first time, fruit indoors, tell me all about it in the comments below. Get into contact on Facebook or Twitter. But all that remains to be done for us now is give our tomatoes a little drink. Cheers.